Please welcome Andrew Ross Sorkin and his guest, the chairman and CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink.
This agency has now chosen BlackRock's Financial Market Advisory Unit to sell off securities portfolios that the agency held after the collapse of Signature Bank.
How do you see this year shaping up, Larry? More of the same, or, are your expectations perhaps a bit different than what we've seen last year?
Protesters in France storming the offices of BlackRock overnight as violence continues to plague Paris.
BlackRock joining the big banks in releasing its numbers this morning. Shares are down about 1.2%.
BlackRock cut less than 3% of its nearly 20,000 strong workforce.
BlackRock, that is cutting up to 500 jobs.
Hello, and welcome back to Serious Coinage. In this video, we will explain how BlackRock, one of the world's largest asset management companies, holds significant financial power over international markets. We'll also explore their dark trade practices, analyze their economic projections, and discuss the implications for other countries around the world. BlackRock, founded by Larry Fink in 1988, manages around $10 trillion in assets, making it the largest fund on Wall Street. That's more than the gross domestic product of every country on the planet except the United States and China. If you were to earn $1 each second in around 240,000 years, you would have as much money as BlackRock. I know, you've had enough of it. There are plenty of big corporations and influential individuals with enough money to reduce everyone to a pulp. Here, though, is why BlackRock warrants extra apprehension. BlackRock is the top stakeholder of almost every major publicly traded firm due to its absurd liquidity. Now, with that out of the way, let's discuss why you should not fear BlackRock. Rather, you should be terrified. The dark things that BlackRock does. The combined assets under management by industry giants BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street amount to $16 trillion, about 70% of the GDP in the US. But this is not the reason BlackRock should strike fear in your heart. You have good reason to be afraid of them, as they are the linchpin between Wall Street and Washington, D.C. Can you guess which firm was hired by the Federal Reserve to clean up after the government bailed out too big to fail firms like Lehman Brothers, Citigroup, AIG, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac during the housing crisis in 2008? You guessed it, BlackRock. The fact that BlackRock had substantial holdings in the very institutions they were assisting to bail out only made matters worse. Financial experts refer to this as circular ownership. However, this is merely horseshit economics. BlackRock owns a stake in CNN and Fox, giving them the ability to unilaterally sway partisan news coverage. Also, they control the markets, the products we use, and the neighborhoods in which we choose to reside. Our politicians are also deep in their pockets. William D. Cohen, author of the best-selling House of Cards, compares Larry Fink, the founder of BlackRock, to the Wizard of Oz, the man in the shadows. Moreover, BlackRock wants to remain anonymous, so that's why you probably haven't heard of it. However, it is too huge to remain out of sight forever. Here are 10 shadowy facts about it and how it affects you. 1. Its holdings are worth trillions. As of June 2023, BlackRock currently controls around $11 trillion in assets, and that number is growing. For perspective, a stack of $1 trillion $1 bills would measure 67,866 miles, stretching approximately 2.72 times around the Earth's equator. If denominated in $100 bills, $1 trillion would be enough to fill 4.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. 2. Why haven't you heard about BlackRock before? Even though they have much less money under their control, major American banks like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup frequently make the news. The truth is that you haven't heard of BlackRock because it has significant holdings in the major media organizations that might have told you about it. BlackRock has considerable shares in Graham Media Group, which owns Slate and Foreign Policy. They also hold shares of CNN, CBS, Fox, Disney, Comcast, Gannett, and Sinclair Broadcast Group. By investing heavily in media conglomerates, BlackRock keeps themselves out of the spotlight and exerts influence over the coverage they receive. 3. The US government's fourth arm, unofficially. In 2020, when COVID-19 first appeared, it ignited a flash recession across the United States and the rest of the world. The Federal Reserve and the United States government acted as they always do and implemented new monetary policies to restore stability in the country. However, this time they had some company. BlackRock. BlackRock was invited to assist in financial market stability by the United States government and Federal Reserve. BlackRock software was used by the government to gain access to the necessary financial information. Critics have called BlackRock the fourth arm of the US government because it was granted access to sensitive financial data. BlackRock responded that it would not even disclose the information internally. 4. Its holdings include shares of competitors. When ostensible rivals are owned by the same people, can we even call it competition? And because BlackRock rarely acts alone, we are also bringing Vanguard and State Street along. State Street Global Advisors (SSGA) is yet another asset manager, but its suspiciously close connections to BlackRock make it noteworthy. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street all have holdings in businesses that compete with them, such as airlines, oil refineries, steel mills, mining operations, e-commerce platforms, financial institutions, insurance providers, tobacco firms, car manufacturers, arms manufacturers, and renewable energy suppliers. The real question here is whether some of our purported competitors are rivals, given that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are among the largest investors in virtually every major competitor we can think of. 5. It controls all pharmaceutical companies. BlackRock has purchased the bulk of shares in practically every pharmaceutical business you can think of. BlackRock also has ownerships in the top 3 US pharmaceutical firms: Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Merck. 6. It actually has $20 trillion in holdings. In the start of this video, we mentioned that BlackRock controls $10 trillion in assets. Thanks to Aladdin, the amount it has under control may be twice as much. Not the one from the Arabian Nights, but rather BlackRock's own financial analysis program. That's the equivalent of 4 times the total amount of money on the globe, or 10% of the world's total financial assets. The United States and China both have GDPs in the low teens, but China's is far lower at $20 trillion. Interestingly, Vanguard and State Street are 2 of BlackRock's Aladdin's largest users. 7. There is no regulation. Banks with more over $50 billion in assets attract special scrutiny from the Treasury under US law. However, the government pays little attention to the fact that BlackRock owns assets worth 200 times as much. Why? Since it is an asset management and not a bank, the law allows BlackRock to operate with minimal regulation. That, however, doesn't explain why the government hasn't made asset managers subject to the legislation or passed a new law specifically for them. In fact, Senator Elizabeth Warren raised this concern during a hearing and pressed Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on whether BlackRock's failure might threaten the US economy. 8. It's also a global enterprise. BlackRock also has holdings in several international markets. However, its operations here are just as divisive as they are in America. BlackRock's strategy is the same across the board. First, it nurtures government-level relationships to gain an advantage over rivals and, more significantly, to evade regulation. Afterwards, it invests in everything else. BlackRock, for instance, was instrumental in the establishment of Canada's Infrastructure Bank, which provides funding for public and private infrastructure projects across the country. The bank was criticized, however, because it served BlackRock's interests. 9. It's the reason why few Americans are buying homes right now. The United States has seen a dramatic rise in home prices over the past few years, and the rise has been attributed to a wide variety of factors, except for asset managers like BlackRock. In 2021, it became public knowledge that BlackRock had been buying up whole neighborhoods full of homes to turn them into rental properties. And it wasn't targeting rental complexes with several units. Instead, it concentrated on single-family homes, the most popular housing option in the United States. As a result, home ownership has become unaffordable for many families who must now turn to renting. A more serious issue arises when investors, seeing the quick spike in housing values, borrow money to construct family homes that they then find difficult to sell because they are overpriced. Every time this happens, a housing bubble forms, followed by a recession. 10. Who is the unknown owner? We've reached the million-dollar question. Who owns BlackRock? BlackRock has several shareholders, but the top 4 are Vanguard, Capital Research and Management Company, BlackRock Fund Advisors, and State Street, SSGA. BlackRock's largest stakeholder is Vanguard, the same Vanguard. Capital Research and Management Company, a similarly concealing firm, comes in second. BlackRock Fund Advisors, a subsidiary of BlackRock, closely follows both corporations. Their respective websites are managed by the same person, Larry Fink, and they share a CEO. State Street, which has already been mentioned several times on this list, has made it into the number 4 spot. Interestingly, BlackRock is the second largest shareholder in State Street behind Vanguard. You smell something fishy in this situation? We do, and we believe that by naming Vanguard's owner, we may be exposing the fish. Who exactly owns Vanguard? Well, seeing as Vanguard is a privately held corporation, we have no idea. It is held entirely by its investors and does not have a public stock market listing like rivals BlackRock and State Street. Who exactly are these financial backers? No one knows, and surprisingly, we were unable to locate any identities online. From the above shadowy facts about BlackRock, we've come to know that it has stakes in almost all major publicly traded companies around the world. It benefits from the company's activities and, as a large stakeholder, shoulders considerable responsibility for the management of those businesses and the global effects of their operations. We've only scratched the surface of these awful effects of BlackRock's business practices. There are plenty more examples we could look at, from big tech hate profiteers to union-busting firms and beyond. BlackRock is ubiquitous in situations where corporations are causing harm. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe for more.